Okay, let's start with creating your own classes. Your own classes. Okay, so this is a kind of good part. Before we do that though, let me just mention one thing. At the end of the last video, we talked about this line, but this wasn't actually there. You didn't see this. So I wanted to show you where this is, because this enables us not to use the whole namespace when referencing a form. So we have the form here. We double click on it, we see our class, form 1, the end of the class. But actually there's a lot more code in here than what we see here. And if you want to see that, you click over here on, like, for example, show all files. And then if you scroll down to form 1 and expand it, you'll see the designer code. So you can see they say this is called a partial class. And what that means is basically it's our code, where was it, here, also actually has this in it. This is included when we compile. This is also included. And here is where it says this. So that enables us to not have to write out the full namespace. Okay? And also here you'll see this in the discussion we're going to make right now. You're going to see why this is important. This is the code. We just drag a button onto the form, but there has to be some code associated with that somewhere. And either we have to write the code, or it has to do it for us. And it does it for us. So when we drag a button onto the form, this is all kind of code based, so it has to somehow appear in the code. And this is what gets generated when we do that in this form1 designer.vb. This code gets printed into here. And this is actually what creates the button. Anyway, we're going to study right now this keyword new. We're going to study it when we talk about creating our own objects. So let's do that, but just remember that this is here, and I think I'll mention it again when it comes up. So let's go back to creating your own classes, and this is kind of the grand finale of our class. Not this kind of class, but our course, our class. Okay, let's look at it. Okay, let's talk about creating your own classes. We're going to create a very simple class. So start a new project. What the class is going to do is it's going to convert letters that might be lowercase to uppercase. So we're going to have a text box, and it's going to have some text in it, and actually it's just going to have this text by default in it, and then we want it to can be converted to uppercase. And we're going to use a pre-existing function that actually already does this, so we don't really need to do it ourselves, but we're going to do it because we're trying to learn about classes. But anyway, this pre-existing function takes some text, so whatever text you put into it, and then you can do this, which basically tells it to convert it to uppercase. So we're going to use this. Okay, so let's see what we do. So start a new project, add a text box, and leave the default name of text box 1. Change the text property, so we're going to actually not even actually make the user type it in, we're just going to change the text property to this. And then, after you've done that, then also add a button to your form. Now, of course, we could just, in the button, just take whatever is in the text property and convert it with that function that I just showed you. So that would be the straightforward way as we've been doing things, right? We could just say when people click on the button, the text property of the text box gets converted to uppercase using that function here. We could just do that. In fact, that's what he says right here. We could just put this in our button. What am I saying? We could have a string like this, define a string, and then just take the text box, convert it to uppercase, and feed it into that string, and then take that string and feed it into the text property of the text box, and that would be done. So we could just have a button like that, but that's not the way we're going to do it. Okay, so how are we going to do it? We're going to write our own class. So once you have the new form with the text box and the button on it, you need to add a class, and this is just very simple. As long as you're not in debugging mode, let me go back to the form. As long as you're not in debugging mode, you can just go to Project and add a class. That's all you have to do to add a class. Okay, so it brings something like this up. If you're using a different version, it's going to be slightly different. And you can, I think we're going to leave it just with that name down here. No, sorry, we're going to give it this name, convert postcode. Postcodes, it means zip code. So give it a name like convert postcode and click add. Oh, I already have it here, so I can't do that. But anyway, just click add. So he says once you have a new form with a text box and a button on it, you need to add a class. This is quite easy. It's just like adding a module. In fact, they look exactly the same. So from the VB menu bar, click on the project. From the drop-down menu, add class. You'll get this dialog box in 2008 version with class default selected. If it's 2010 or 2012, it might look like something like this. Okay. The class template is already selected there. You just change the name. We're going to change it to this. And when it opens up, it looks like that. Okay, so it's just a blank slate. So it looks like this. As you can see, there's not a great deal to look at. All we have is the public class and the end class code stub. Just the code, nothing inside it, or just the framework, nothing inside it. The name of our class is also there, but the code is in a separate window and has a tab all to itself. It's this tab full of code that you will reuse. So okay. Okay. What we have to do now is add the code that does the work, converts our postcode. So we want to convert the postal code. But he says we can't just put this in there. So that you might say, okay, just do that. But that won't work when it's in a class. So he says that would be all right for a button on our form, but it's not right for our class. When you're designing a class, the code has to go inside things like functions or sub-procedures. So you'll see how to create your own properties for your class, for your objects as well. So okay, but we're going to make functions and sub-procedures, so we have to put this inside. We can't just drop it into here, like just right there. We have to make a function, and that function will have that code. Now remember the word that we use when we're talking about a class. If we have a function associated with that class, it's called a method. So if it's not associated with a class, we can call it just a function or a sub. But when it's inside a class, it's called a method. Okay. So we're going to create a method for that little bit of code we had. So we just write a function just like before, just like as other times we've written functions. And we're going to call this, but we're going to write this inside the class. So here's the function that we're going to write inside the class code. Okay, so here it is. It's just the same as before, but we are going to make it a public function, and we're going to call it doConvert, whatever. You can call it anything you want. And so remember, if it's a function, then that's a little bit different than a subprocedure. It means we can use the output of the function somewhere. Okay? So just put this in there. So it's doing just what I said before, except it's a slightly different, because before I said that we put this in there, into this string convert function. We put the text that's in the text box in there. But when we make a function like this, we're going to take this variable, which, remember, a function can take parameters. So here's a parameter for this function. And so what we're going to do is the way that we're going to do this is we're going to use doConvert. We're going to put some text in there, and this is going to represent that text, and then that text we're going to do this with it. So this is a kind of substitute for the text, and then this tells the coordination of this and this tells it that whatever goes in here goes here. So we're going to do the string conversion on that text, which is just what we wanted to do. So that's the only difference between what we had up above and this. Okay, so put this in there, and what you're going to have when you're finished is this. Okay? All we've done is set up a public, not a private function. We've given it the name doConvert. We've set it up to accept one parameter, which is a string, right? String here, called postcode. This is the value that will be handled by our function. The function itself has been set up as a string. In other words, the output is also going to be a string. This means that doConvert will be just like a string variable that we can, I think he means to say that we can assign to a variable. Okay, I don't think we assign a value to it. It assigns a value to something else, is what I think he meant to say. The code itself you've met before. It uses the built. So I don't know if we did this or not. Actually, I don't know. Did we use this or not? But it uses the built-in string function. I'm sorry, string convert function to do the actual job of converting the string to uppercase letters. Now that we've set up a method, so now it's called a method, right? Because it's in the class. Let's see how to create an object from our class and put the method to use. Okay, so let's stop this video here. So just to review, what did we do? We created a class, and now it has a method. And just to clue you in, once we create an instance of that class, in other words, once we have an object, then we can use the style of, you write the object name dot the method, and that's how you call that method. Right, you have the object name dot the method. So we'll create some object of this type, which you'll see what I mean, and then we'll say whatever that is dot doConvert. Anyway, let's stop here and come back.